MultimediaJay radio style.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to MultimediaJay Radio Style, and I'd say that I am back in the swing of things here on YouTube because once again, for the first time in a long time, I have so much stuff to work on for YouTube that I'm posting stuff out of order. Yeah, I've got bits and pieces of a video blog from yesterday that still have to be mixed together, but I really don't feel like doing that this afternoon with the work week beginning and all that other nonsense, so I'm just doing this radio style thing instead, which will be simpler to put together and simpler to upload. Now, that's not what I want to talk about, though. I want to talk about the rise and fall of Facebook and the utter paradox that is the so-called social side of social media. Now, Facebook, for the longest time, has been the most personal of the social media stuff that I've been involved in. It's nothing that anybody on here would be interested in. It's mostly been things like daily minutia, and I used to respond and give my opinion on news articles on there, but now that's largely been shifted over to my text blog, and all that's left there is really the stuff that maybe family and friends would be interested in, like daily minutia and stuff like that, or updates on and how things have been, stuff along those lines. However, sad to say, I really think Facebook, except for maybe gossipy high school kids or college kids or something like that, or anybody who's in a part of their life where everybody has too much free time on their hands and stuff like that, I really think Facebook is past its prime. I am absolutely at wit's end with the whole Facebook situation, and I'm very seriously considering having Facebook be little more than a gaming platform for me beginning next month, where I only hop on Facebook to play like Farmville or something like that, or try out Facebook games or anything of that sort. Like I've said before, I actually get more people giving a darn about YouTube videos and blog posts than I do any kind of Facebook updates. It's almost complete radio silence on Facebook, and I'm really sick of it because a lot of this started happening when I got laid off in January. You know, it's the stuff I was talking about earlier in my last rather depressing radio style segment that I did earlier. And then, to add insult to injury, the people on Facebook that I'm still friends with, who actually do post on there on a regular basis, usually do one of two things. Either they post something that is an out-and-out blatant cry for attention, aka toot their horn or something like that, or they just start drama with all this passive-aggressive stuff about maybe people that they're friends with that they dislike, or things they dislike, or something along those lines. They never mention names, but it's pretty obvious who they're talking about when they take these shots at people. Or at least it looks like it's pretty obvious. See, that's one of the problems. The internet's never been good at transmitting sarcasm. And one of the big problems with this passive-aggressive stuff that's all over the place on Facebook these days is that you have to guess as to whether the person's dissing you or not, or insulting you or not, or if I can find another word besides Fresh Prince terminology here, you know, maybe to do the high five, psh, or something like that. But yeah, that's one of the problems with all this stuff. When I see somebody just taking shots at some unnamed enemy or something like that, I'm like, hey, is that me or something? Yeah, we shouldn't have that stuff going on. Then you have people with the audacity to do both, toot their horn and take shots at people on there. So really, too much of a soap opera for my tastes. It really gets awkward when it's members of your own family or former friends you had in like high school or college that are playing these games. Like, they, they friend you and they're like, hey, how you doing? Keep in touch. It's nice to hear from you again. And then nothing. They don't keep in touch. They don't do anything of that sort. And then you see them post things like, oh, look at me. I'm stronger than I was 5 years ago. I'm a better person now. I feel like I'm really getting better. Yeah, so do most people with any amount of self-esteem. Wow, thank you, Captain Obvious. Most people feel that way about themselves. It's just they keep that to themselves instead of looking for other people's confirmation of their ego on Facebook. Like sands through the hourglass. Mostly it's the silence that gets to me, though, because that really points to the irony of all this technology, is that, hey, we're more connected than ever before, yet we still don't keep in touch with each other. You know, it used to be that you'd have to write a letter to somebody in a faraway place if you had cousins far away, and have to wait for the letter to arrive, them to read it, and them to mail you back and stuff like that. You'd think that even something as simple as email would solve this problem with, say, distant family and friends. But nope, life goes on, nobody cares, and anybody who may have cared about you previously in life, you'll suddenly find is so apathetic that they might as well pinch themselves to see if they still have a pulse. I've certainly run into that, and I'm sure other people would run into that too. But that's what I keep running into on all these social media sites. You know, hey, keep in touch, keep in touch. Crickets, 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 crickets. That kind of stuff. So as much as I'm mad at what Facebook has deteriorated to these days, it's a symptom, not the problem. The supreme irony and paradox of allegedly social media in our day and age is that in a time when people have never been more connected, people still won't talk to each other on a regular basis or keep in touch. And I've seen that with every single form of social media that I've tried to get involved with. Let's rattle them off. First, email. Yes, I consider email to be a form of social media. We're going back to around the turn of the millennium here, but let's just say that myself and my dad, we were the last folks in the family to go online in any way, shape, or form because we didn't bother with having computers at home and stuff like that, or internet service for the longest time. Pretty much when I went off to college and I started emailing people on the broadband, everyone started lampooning my, hey, you're Yater, Jethro, you're the last person in the family that's still not online. Why don't you go get yourself a cheap computer and we can all keep in touch with each other via email? Well, maybe it wasn't in that exact tone of voice, but something along those lines. Yeah, we kind of were a bunch of hillbillies here with the fact that everybody else was was supposedly yip-yapping with each other via email, and we weren't. But what do you know? What do you know? Hey, glad you're finally online. So we get wired up. We get email accounts. Hey, what do you know? Hey, you're finally online. Now we can all keep in touch with each other, and then silence. Yeah. Failure number one. I'm sure that all the talk about how it's so wonderful, everybody keeps in touch with each other online, you're really missing out on a lot of stuff. I'm sure that was royally overblown. And yeah, I think my dad's the only person who keeps in touch with me via email on a regular basis. Most of the email I get these days is like most of the snail mail I get these days. Advertisements and bills. And you could say technically that email kind of had snail mail as a predecessor too, that, yeah, you know, we could write letters to each other because we're far away, but nobody ever went to all the trouble, except in extremely rare circumstances. And that has just gone electronic with email. But email was where I first saw that. Heck, my dad's still putting up with that because he does most of his electronic communication via email too, by writing up like opinion articles and stuff. People said, hey, I like what you write. Send it to me every night. And he has, and now suddenly radio silence. He really has to stir up the hornet's nest to get anybody to respond, despite all the enthusiasm earlier. Ah, the paradox of electronic so-called communications and social media. Anywho, so email was a complete failure. Now, the next thing that I got involved with was AOL Instant Messenger back during the heydays of AIM. This was back in the days in college when AIM was preferable to phone calls. We almost never used our on-campus phones to call each other. Even the people with cell phones would deliberately not use up their minutes and just walk over to a computer and IM people. AOL, you could walk, there was a time when you couldn't walk through the dorms without hearing do, 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 do. That's all, like every 5 seconds, somebody with their really loud speakers turned up would receive IMs. And it was almost like, it was basically background noise in college dorms back then to hear all the do, 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 do. Or people that messed with the sounds, they'd have it like moo every time they received a message. So sometimes am I in a dorm or am I in a barn? Because every 5 seconds, moo, hey, the kid down the street got it, or the folks down the hall just got an AIM. But that phenomenon was actually made fun. There was this song that I got to dig up the video for it, but someone actually did like a spoof music video about IMing and stuff like that, and it was called I Am Me. I think I'm going to make a companion blog entry after this radio style segment uploads. I'm going to do a companion blog entry where I post all these related videos because there actually was a song about the IM phenomenon back in the early 2000s. I definitely should dig that up and put that in some kind of blog entry. So after night after night after night of that kind of crap, I finally asked one of my friends in college freshman year, hey, what's all this noise I hear, and what's this program I hear everybody's using? Oh, it's Instant Messenger. Want me to show you how to set up? Yeah. Geek like me, someone had to show me how to set up AOL Instant Messenger for the first time. Sad, isn't it? So eventually I got in on that. People like, hey Jay, how you doing, Jay? Yeah, let's like email, let's like IM each other instead of emailing. Yeah, it was fun for like one semester. And then very, very shortly after the initial explosion of us IMing each other all over the place, by the time I graduated, the people who were online at all basically had away messages up all the time. So basically AOL Instant Messenger became like Facebook walls. You could just post something, and when they got back, they'd respond to it. But there was none of the real-time stuff and things like that. Everybody had away messages up all the time, and it was very much an AIM forerunner to Facebook walls. So again, hey, how you doing? How you doing? Crickets, crickets, crickets. I actually had one person block me on AIM because I was like, hey, what's up? And they were really mad and they didn't want to talk to anybody. It's like, dude, oh, shoot, they blocked me. So, yeah. And then there was MySpace. Oh, yeah, remember the MySpace explosion back in the mid-2000s? Although I didn't really see MySpace as really a way to communicate as much as it was like people collecting each other like baseball cards. It was kind of like a baseball card - Pokemon card thing going on with MySpace, where people would just friend everybody in sight and kind of do the gotta catch 'em all thing with people. And even if they only kept in touch with maybe 1% of the people they actually friended, usually MySpace would just be like, oh, look, I have all these bazillions of friends that I never keep in touch with and crap like that. Plus, it was fun to see what kind of colorblind designs people could come up with for their pages. I kept things somewhat sane with a bluish type background that was easier on people's eyes than some of the really like spin art stuff people were doing. But again, with MySpace, the social media paradox reared its ugly head, even though this wasn't really, people weren't looking at MySpace as like an alternative to email or anything. But the social media paradox reared its ugly head with MySpace too. Because people are like, oh, how you doing? Hey, good to hear from you again. Let's keep in touch. And then nothing. You'd be lucky if they even logged in on a regular basis. Probably that was the first time I really started noticing this social media paradox, was when MySpace went dead silent and eventually just died altogether. It's still kind of in a half-broken state these days as the investors trying to revamp it or renovate it and relaunch it as a music site continue to take forever to get this thing to come out. Anywho, and then we had Facebook. Facebook, particularly after the Facebook explosion when it was opened up to everybody and it was no longer college students only, Facebook really had a lot of potential. It displaced MySpace completely, and there were even videos going around a couple of years ago where people were talking about, hey, look at how fast technology's going. People nowadays are considering email to be old school because of Facebook. I got so many videos to link in the companion blog entry that's going to go with this video, so I should probably get digging. So, actually when the video's uploaded, I'll get to work on the blog entry so we don't kind of mess things up between the Facebook and WordPress audiences, but I'd say Facebook has been the most meteoric fall of them all. I mean, I was keeping in touch with just about everybody on Facebook. Family, friends, folks in the church, the whole 9 yards, everybody. We were all kind of one big happy family on Facebook. And then things started to drop off. People got sick of it and nobody would respond to anything. Then I got laid off and some people started ignoring me altogether because, oh, he's never going to have anything good to say. He's out of a job in the worst economy since the Great Depression and all that other nasty stuff. And yeah, I'd say it's a tumbleweed city at this point. I think what really killed Facebook, though, was they drank too much of the social media monopolist Kool-Aid. They tried to be like, you know how YouTube just releases new features whether people want them or not, and people flip out about it every single time, but still people don't leave YouTube and no viable alternatives come up. It's your classic monopolist situation where the monopoly company doesn't have to worry about whether their customers like them or not, because there's really nowhere else they can go that really does all the same stuff as they do. So I think the big thing here is Facebook got so big, and right around the time of their IPO, I guess they thought that they could pull the same shenanigans as YouTube. Only problem is, what is Facebook? It's a way to communicate. And are there alternatives for communication besides Facebook? Yes. Whereas with video, there are some alternatives here and there, but nothing that's really as all-encompassing as YouTube can be. So, needless to say, when Timeline was forced down everybody's throats and everybody hated it, people actually responded by not logging into Facebook anymore. So, I probably defriended about 2/3 of the people that were on my friend list at the start of the year this year because they haven't kept in touch. Some of them were people that were never all that wild about Facebook and never logged in. Some of them stopped logging in after Timeline. Others just vanished for whatever reason. Maybe because they didn't like me anymore or something like that, but didn't want to delete me outright or something like that. And then it's just been a mess. Gradually, one group of people went silent after another, and I'm down to probably only maybe 5 people who actually still give a darn about myself or my dad, and the rest are probably just putting up with me because they friended me and don't want to push the red button. I'm seriously thinking, though, of just having only like 5 friends grand total and just using Facebook largely as a gaming platform, because the way things are nowadays, I mean, I'm in a rough situation, but there's other people in my family that are in rough situations that when they post about how bad things are for them, they actually get way more sympathy and way more responses from people on there than I do. So that's my cue that I'm probably as good as dead to most of them. But yeah. The way it works nowadays is that if I spam enough funny pictures, maybe I can eke out a like or two from people, but anything serious or anything that's actually what Facebook was kind of designed for in terms of keeping in touch and updates on how things have been, nothing. Maybe my dad will respond, but we can keep in touch with each other via email. We don't need Facebook for that. So, what's the point? I see none. Meanwhile, I don't know what's going to replace Facebook, but the newer social media sites that are popping up aren't like Facebook. They are more focused, like Pinterest is like pictures and stuff, and you got Instagram, which is pictures and things like that. And there's some other sites that are very specific compared to Facebook, so I don't know what's going to be the next big thing, but I'm guessing right now that no matter what happens in the world of so-called social media, I'll keep seeing the same thing over and over again. The exact same thing that happened when it was snail mail, when there wasn't even any email. Even if the means exist for people and friends and family to stay in touch with one another, it's not going to happen. I mean, I just don't see it happening. Between what I've seen with snail mail, what I've seen with email, and what I've seen with so-called social media sites, I don't see this changing anytime soon. If any of you have had similar frustrating experiences with so-called social media, feel free to leave a comment discussing this, because I'm sure I'm not the only one. It'd be nice to know that I'm not the only one. But sometimes that's the way the cookies crumble on the internet. Anyways, until next time, I'm MultimediaJay. This is MultimediaJay Radio Style. Thanks for listening, and thanks for stopping by.